it happened, I later found out as an AP.
I know he wants to.
Well, thank you, you all, for being patient and waiting while I got the technology set up. That's always fun. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the UTeach program and the replication of it. And first of all, I want to thank ExxonMobil for what they have done in this partnership to make this replication possible. It's really incredibly generous. It's very exciting for us. It's very frightening, actually, for us because it's a different kind of experiment and a whole different paradigm in funding educational programs, this idea of replication rather than just funding new ideas. And we'll see how it's going to work. We're working at the first stages of it with all of our replication sites now. But let me just begin by telling you a little bit about the UTeach program itself and what we think makes it unusual and successful. I apologize to those of you who have heard this 45 times, like Howard, but I'm expecting that some of you will not have heard it, so I think probably we need to talk a little bit about it. So, of course, responding to the gathering storm, this report has focused a lot of attention on UTeach. UTeach is actually a lot older than that. We started about 10 years ago with a pilot program, which, I'm going to skip that, which actually was just 28 students, kind of guinea pigs, that we talked into trying out a new program with new ideas that we'd come up with. The way we kind of envisioned this program and came up with the bare bones of it, at least initially, was to bring together a number of very experienced math and science high school and middle school teachers and ask their advice about what they would like to have had in their own training if they could have had anything. I also consulted with some other folks like Uri Treisman, a very well-known and distinguished expert on K through 12 education techniques and policy, and a number of other people. And actually, I also went out and tried teaching science to my daughter's elementary school class and realized a few things on my own. And one of the things I realized was that just because you're a good university professor does not mean you're a good elementary, middle school, or high school teacher. And that I needed to, if I was going to create a new program, a different kind of program at the University of Texas, I needed to involve people who really knew how to do this. And that's why we brought together this team of middle school and high school teachers that summer. I expected them to work for about a week and give me some advice. They worked all summer. They looked at all of our major curricula and came up with the beginnings of the pedagogy program that has completely transformed UTeach, our teacher preparation program, into UTeach, I should say. Before we had the UTeach program, what was happening at the University of Texas? Texas had a law that said you had to have a degree in your discipline in order to teach in high school. That was extended over the course of these 10 years to middle school and even down to 4th grade for specialists. Of course, there are lots of exceptions given, and there's lots of people teaching without this kind of certification, but that was the law. So the College of Natural Sciences, the College of Science is what it is, had the right authority, responsibility to train teachers. We were not doing that. I had, at the time we began UTeach, 8,500 approximately undergraduate majors in the College of Science. I think we had 6 people certified in science the year before we began UTeach. We had more in math, about, 15 or something like that, but it was abysmal. We were managing to discourage students, and I think what Brian said was really, really key about university, Research One universities and Research One University faculty and advisors, their attitude towards teacher preparation for their students and the teaching of science and math in public schools was very negative. I wanted to create a program where strong students in large numbers were attracted to the program as a first choice for their career. not as a fallback, which was what was going on with these 6 students that were getting certified out of the 8,500. Also, most of the kids, I think, that were being certified, at least in science at that time, were just getting it as an insurance policy. They weren't going on and teaching. I wanted students to come out as really strong teachers and teach. So, as I say, we brought together this advice, and we came up with a very different kind of program. This graph shows you the growth of that program over the course of its life. The first, in fall of '97, was just 28 guinea pigs. We actually, because we didn't have a program then, we only had a 1-hour pilot course. We decided to pay the tuition for that course for those students because we weren't sure it was going to lead anywhere, and we didn't want, at that time, UT charged by the semester credit hour. We didn't want to have these kids paying for something that wasn't going to do them any good. And actually, that turned out to be a really good thing to do, and we have kept that throughout the life of the program. We actually have 2 1-hour courses that begin the program. Both of them involve training by master teachers, experienced high school and middle school teachers, to go out into public school system in Austin. And in the first semester, they teach 3 lessons over the course of the semester in elementary school classrooms after this preparation and training by our teachers and under guidance by a good mentor in the classroom. And the second semester, they go out in middle school and do the same thing. This is a very conscious strategy to hook students on teaching and to let them try teaching and see if they like it. We advertise this to all of our science and math majors at orientation when they come in the summer, and then we send out letters after they've been admitted. We advertise it in the orientation meetings, and we advertise it in the big entry-level science and math courses. About 60% of the kids who try step 1 and step 2, and as I say, we pay their tuition, actually stay in the program and proceed. The program is characterized by field experience at every level, every year, beginning with these step courses. And that's very conscious. And it is characterized by faculty, by master teachers who are part of our faculty, who deliver some of the curriculum, who are mentors, advisors, guides, and actually everything else. So let me just show you some other statistics here about our students in this case. So we now have about 500, a little over 500 students steady state in the program out of a student body now of about 9,000. As you can see here, our UTeach students are strong students. Initially, for the first several years, they actually were remarkably stronger than the general population in the college. Actually, the college population has now come up to the UTeach population, but in terms of entering math SAT scores, they are equal to the rest of the college. In terms of grade point average, they are higher. In terms of retention in the college and graduation, retention to graduation, they're twice as good as students in the rest of the college. And in terms of minority participation, they are also higher than in the college and in the university. So we succeeded in attracting strong students in large numbers. This graph shows the distribution now of our students in terms of their declared majors. And I'll show you a little bit about the UTeach pedagogy in just a moment, but these are students from our college and now from other colleges who are coming in and asking to take the UTeach pedagogy courses and the relevant science courses, science and math courses that are necessary for certification. So it's all over the place, a lot, of course, in science, a lot in math, but even engineering students, even a couple of fine arts students. So we have a great deal of interest from across the university. We also have an option for post-baccalaureate students to do a shortened version in 1 year of the program, and you can see that in the very bottom line. Now, what about, do they go out and teach? Yes, they do go out and teach when they graduate, and they're extremely successful teachers, and they stay in teaching longer than the average. about 85% of UTeach graduates actually go on and teach, and of those who go on and teach, 92% of those who have graduated to date are still teaching. Those who have been out 5 years or more, about 70% of those are teaching. And that is in comparison to the blue bars up here, which are average numbers for teachers in general. These are teachers at all levels, in all disciplines, from a large data set that's pretty out of date at this point. It was, I think, something like 2000, 2001 is the last group that was looked at here. But clearly, our teachers, our graduates are teaching and staying in teaching in large numbers. So I think this is probably one of the most important statistics for the program. So why? Why do we think this is successful when other programs that we had at UT and other places have been less so? First of all, I think the involvement of the master teachers is really important. They are the life of the program. They have been from the very beginning. They provide real life experience, guidance, inspiration, and so on. They are faculty in the College of Science. We have thrown out all of the old general education pedagogy courses. I don't know if any of you all took them when you were in school, but I did. I used to read a novel while one of my courses was going on. They were not, I didn't think, very relevant, very interesting, and after you take a full curriculum in science and math, not very challenging. Now what we have are classes slimmed down in terms of number of hours, but focused on how you teach math and science, very much using modern knowledge about how students learn, how different kinds of learners, what kinds of pedagogy different kinds of learners need, when you use technology, when you use inquiry, where you use other approaches, very focused on tools that work in teaching math and science, and integrating math and science in these pedagogy courses, not in their discipline courses, but in the pedagogy courses. Also, field experience at every level. So the kids take the first 2 step courses, 1-hour courses, then if they enter the program, they begin a pedagogy course which takes them into high school field experience. So they have field experience at every year. And then finally, of course, they do practice teaching as seniors. The field experience, I think, the early field experience is very important. I skipped one on the slide before last, but another thing we do is this very aggressive recruitment and paying the tuition. We also have quite a lot of different types of support. And I'll tell you about a couple of those in just a second. We have, and that turns out to be quite important too. But the field experience, continuing field experience, is very reinforcing, and I think is one of the things that's responsible for the retention in the program. It is a 4-year program. So I said it was slimmed down. It was slimmed down in the pedagogy. It's slightly modified in terms of the math and science curriculum, but basically the students take a full math and science program that could take them to graduate school or into industry jobs, whatever. So, but these things are interdigitated and reinforce one another. This is the full curriculum laid out. You can enter it as freshmen, as you see on the top there, and take one of these every semester until you graduate, or it can be telescoped and done more quickly for upperclassmen or post-baccalaureates. The College of Natural Sciences teaches some of the pedagogy courses or some of the UTeach specific courses, in addition, of course, to the discipline courses. The College of Education teaches 3 of the pedagogy courses, and College of Liberal Arts contributes a history of math and science, or history of science, really, a perspectives course, which fulfills an area requirement. One of the courses that the College of Natural Sciences teaches is a very conscious effort to inform our pre-teachers what it's like to actually do research. We're a Research One university. We should teach them how to do research and how to teach that experience to their own students. So they take a research methods course that was designed for the UTeach program. This course actually has now exploded into something that is being taught to almost all of our undergraduates in the college. It's been incredibly successful. But it's critical thinking, statistical analysis, personal research experience, and analysis and reporting. But for the UTeach students, in the context of how do I do this when I'm a teacher. There's another course that's taught by the College of Education, which is project-based instruction, which focuses on how you use inquiry in major projects to teach key concepts, hands-on teaching. And this also is, I think, a very important, different approach here for the program, and very successful. We also have, as I say, we have special opportunities for support, internships, and scholarships. The internships in particular are very important. We raise private money to give students experience in teaching settings, informal teaching settings, after school programs, as aides and AIs in Austin classrooms, docents in museums. This gives students a different kind of field experience, which also reinforces their teaching. I'm going to skip this because I realize we're a little bit behind time. The other thing we do is we have an induction support program, which I think is almost as important as these different elements for the teacher preparation program itself. Students need support once they graduate, and although in Texas there's actually a mandate to provide that the school district should provide this, and they do in some measure, what is really needed is sort of disinterested support but by somebody who's not a part of the team that judges them for promotion or whatever. We have master teachers that go out and work with our new graduates, getting them established as really successful teachers. They do, excuse me, they do pretty much whatever is necessary, coaching them on lesson preparation, taking them equipment, talking about how they deal with difficult personal situations with parents or whatever. And it I think, makes a huge difference in keeping students in teaching. And finally, we have a master's program that also keeps us involved with our students after they're established as teachers. So I think I've already said most of what's here. One thing I didn't mention was that about half of our students teach in high needs free and reduced lunch schools. Our field experience is also very consciously placed in schools with free and reduced, high proportion of free and reduced lunch. So we try to give them a real dose of reality, and they actually pick that up and really go for it as graduates as well. So to Brian's point about Research One faculty not supporting this idea. At the University of Texas, we're the best Research One university within 1,000 miles. I mean, a lot of attention for research is focused on the coasts. Well, Texas is a really important Research One university in the middle and southern part of the United States. We have very strong faculty, and I think we were managing to squelch this interest before UTeach started. But we actually did a survey of our students in entry-level math and science courses before we started UTeach, and found that about 25% of the students expressed an interest in teacher preparation, which we were managing somehow to kill. Now, in fact, after 10 years, I have some of my strongest faculty involved in teaching in the UTeach program and in requesting opportunities to participate in other ways with the program. It's extremely popular with the faculty, and faculty are very committed to it and very encouraging. So I think this transformation certainly can take place. Another myth that we had, which we, I think, have, if not exploded, at least we understand a little bit better, is that if you're a good college teacher, or if you just know the discipline, you can teach in high school or middle school. And in fact, that is not the case. And one really needs the pedagogy along with the knowledge of the discipline. But you have to have both to be a really effective teacher. I think another myth that we had that we have exploded here, I've mentioned the first two here I think already, but another myth that we had that I really need to focus on is that colleges of education won't cooperate if a college of science wants to do something like this. I should have mentioned from the very beginning that we have a full partnership with the College of Education in this program. They have thrown out all their old general education courses and focused on the new UTeach pedagogy and developed it with us. They are terrific partners. This kind of partnership can happen in a very productive way that's a win-win for everybody. And I think that's an important thing to understand. There's a lot of education college bashing that goes on these days. And I think some of it probably is justified, but it doesn't have to happen that way. And I think UTeach is a good example of how it can work another way. NIMSY, as Gerald said, is trying to take these two programs to scale, and we're in the process of doing that. Let me just tell you a little bit about that initiative. In the replication of UTeach, we actually spend a lot of time talking with ourselves, among ourselves, and with NIMSY about what were the most essential elements that we had to insist were part of a replication. As I said at the beginning, replication is a different paradigm than universities are used to. We are used to operating in the paradigm of getting a grant from NSF or from a foundation to create a new program that we love, that we've thought up, falling in love with it, putting it in place, and then wondering what we're going to do when the money goes away. What we want to do now is what we very consciously did with this replication effort is we say we want the essential elements replicated exactly like Starbucks. Secondly, we want, because we know they work. And honestly, we don't know which ones you could take away and have it not work. We do know that over the course of these 10 years, people have come, universities have come and sort of cherry-picked the different pieces that they liked, that were easy from our program ideas, and have not had the same results. So we tried to come up with elements that we thought were really essential and make those part of the replication. We also consciously are not giving very big grants. I mean, yes, ExxonMobil has been really generous, and we are very grateful, but actually we've been very stingy. Most of the ExxonMobil money is going to AP Strategies replication sites. We give our sites $1.4 million over the course of 5 years. If you know anything about federal grants for education, that's a small grant. At the end of those 5 years, if the program is successfully established, we will give, NIMSY will give, another $1 million to establish an endowment. There are many elements of this program, the internships and the induction support program being the most expensive ones, that are difficult to fund at a public university with tuition dollars. You need gift money. You need partnerships like this with business in order to do this program. So the $1 million at the end assumes is only given if the program is successfully established, and it's a match. So the university has to come up with its own million in gifts, and then NIMSY matches it. That will start the establishment of an endowment that can then support the special elements of the program. So we very consciously have gone counter to the pattern at NSF and other funding agencies in a variety of ways, and I think it's important. This is an experiment. We need to watch our experiment in replication as well as every other part of this, but I think that it's hopefully going to be a better way of going about this and making sure these programs are established. Already at 3 of our replication sites, the $1 million gifts have been matched. So they already have the $1 million in place waiting for the NIMSY gift. I should maybe just mention these essential elements. So the essential elements, partnership between colleges of ed and colleges of science or their equivalent at the sites. Real participation and leadership from lead faculty in both colleges, and particularly in the College of Science. As I say, I have some of my strongest faculty, not faculty educator, not education faculty that specialize in science, scientists, first-run scientists participating in this program. Inclusion of experienced public school teachers as part of the faculty who deliver the program. Incorporation of the new UTeach pedagogy, and we are producing the pedagogy in various forms to actually give these folks. We don't expect them to use it verbatim, but what we do expect is that they produce a program that can be completed in 4 years that focuses on the elements of the pedagogy that we consider really important, knowing and learning science and teaching it that way, inquiry, use of technology, and so on. Field experience, very important at every level, and a research experience that helps them deliver that kind of knowledge to their own students. And then aggressive recruitment with tuition paid for the first 2 step courses, internships that offer other opportunities for field experience, and extensive induction support, which we think is really important. We issued a request for proposals in March 2007. We got 52 submissions for this. And we looked, these were pre-proposals we asked for in March. We looked at mostly at statistics of the institution and the students and the school district. In the first submission, we invited about half of these folks to a meeting where we told them more about UTeach in Austin, and then invited full proposals. 26 submitted full proposals. In this go-round, we looked at how well they knew the UTeach program, how willing they were to be a faithful replicant, and the capacity for program growth and impact, and the ability to provide ongoing assessment data, because we feel like we need to know if this is really working in the future. We chose 10 sites nationally and 3 in Texas, and these are shown here. They include some of the strongest universities in the country, but some that are not at the forefront of research. So we have a nice array, I think, starting with UC Berkeley, UC Irvine, University of Colorado, University of Florida, Florida State, University of Kansas, LSU, Northern Arizona, University of Flagstaff, Temple, in Philadelphia, Western Kentucky, University at Bowling Green, University of Houston, UT Dallas, and University of North Texas in Texas. So then the Texas funding came from some other sources, as well as from NIMSY and ExxonMobil. And you can see them highlighted in yellow. So we have a lot of, we had a lot of universities who wanted to be replicates who didn't get funding. It was very difficult to choose. We had to draw a line, and but there are a number waiting in the wings that we think we could do very quickly in a second round. So we're ready to proceed if we get additional funding, but we need additional funding partners to do that. And this just summarizes this for both AP Strategies and UTeach. The next steps for UTeach that we're focusing on for UTeach Austin, and these may end up being incorporated in future replication rounds, is we're focusing now on a UTeach curriculum for people who want to be elementary school teachers, and secondly, a UTeach curriculum that focuses on teaching engineering, recruiting engineering teachers into engineering students into UTeach, but also teaching science students how to teach engineering in high school, because this, we feel, is one of the most important ways to really engage students in science, is not just teach them a whole list of facts and the parts of a plant or something. Teach them how to apply it, get their hands dirty, understand why science and math matter. Then you really capture their interest and hopefully keep it. So we feel like including engineering in this in a very explicit way is extremely important. Also, it's going to be part of a 4-year science requirement in Texas, and so it fits our state requirements very well. So thanks for your attention. I'd be happy to take questions when we have time.
Let me now introduce, thank you, Marianne. That was really exciting, and the whole emphasis on replication. As you say, it's sort of my new idea. That's what I want. Our next speaker is Patrick Callahan. He's in the University of California Office of the President of the entire University of California system. He's leading the and is the executive director of the Science and Math Initiative CalTeach program. And he really is looking at faculty in the whole K through 12 system. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I should add one more piece of personal information, and that is that before coming to the University of California system, I was at the University of Texas at Austin, and I had the distinct pleasure of being a participant in the first 4 years of the Texas program, the UTeach program. And I can definitely acknowledge that it informed and shaped a lot of the decisions that went on in California. But I also have to say, it wasn't that California hadn't ever been involved in preparing teachers before. The University of California system, as just pointed out, the UCLA teacher preparation program is celebrating its 125th anniversary this year. So it does actually get to the point, and I'm going to kind of run through. Fortunately, I know that we're behind schedule, but I think that Marianne hit a lot of the key points that I'll be able to so I'll try to emphasize some of the distinctions and some of the key points as well. And there's a nice California wave to get us started. All right. Okay, a bit of background. The California Teach program, in fact, it wasn't called that. It was the Science and Mathematics Initiative, started back in 2004. There was a compact made with the relatively new governor of the state, Arnold Schwarzenegger, with the presidents of the UC system and the CSU system. Bob Dines, Charles Reed, Arnold Schwarzenegger. They had they rolled out a year later this initiative. In fact, Linda Goff, the founding director, came up with a sort of catchphrase, as she called it, to use: 1,000 teachers, 1 million minds, which we're glad to see ended up informing the Rising Above the Gathering Storm to make one of the highlights, as you know, 10,000 teachers, 10 million minds. And there actually is a logical, proportional argument in there. California has 10% of the students for the entire country. So taking that 1,000 teacher number and multiplying it by 10 makes sense as a goal. So historically, UC's produced about 250. So we're trying to get up to about 1,000 new math and science teachers a year. The CSU system produces about 750, and it's trying to get up to 1,500. By the way, 2,500 new math and science teachers every year would still not suffice to cover the needs of California. But it would make a very significant impact. So in this discussion today, why the University of California? Marianne Rankin mentioned Research One involvement. And I think that that's a really good question because, as you know, traditionally, the research universities have not been a major provider of teachers in the system. But when you think about math and science teacher preparation, Research One universities, and UC in particular, has world-class faculty, world-class research, laboratories, experience, and I should say, not just in STEM, as I mentioned earlier, a long history of research in education and cognitive, social science, etc. But there is something missing, and this was the highlight earlier, so I can just sort of comment. The Research One universities don't necessarily have a lot of hands-on experience in K-12 classrooms. And as I put down in my slide here, what's missing is the K-12 practitioners, in particular master and mentor teachers. And so that is definitely something that needs to be added into this equation. So I'm going to go very quickly through this. I mean, essentially, as I said, when we started this, unlike the challenge of starting something at one campus, we had a system of 9 campuses. The UC system has 10 campuses. All of them are Research One universities, but the 10th one is UC San Francisco. It's only a graduate program in medicine. However, one of the faculty there, Bruce Alberts, insists that and is a very active member of our board. He's a former president of the National Academy of Sciences. So basically, in a nutshell, the idea is that there would be these early experiences. And again, thank you to the UTeach program for really thinking deeply about the key elements of their success, allowed a similar conversation with our faculty to think about their elements and what are the key things. And one of the important conversations that occurred early on was, does it make sense to come together and talk about this science math initiative as a system? For those of you on the outside, actually, the UC campuses compete rather aggressively amongst themselves and with each other. So coming to the table and trying to cooperate had its own challenges. And of course, the challenges of even the cooperation among the various departments on each campus. But all of that did come together, and we had unanimous agreement on what it would really take to make a successful program. And again, it's not a surprise, looking at what Texas had done, thinking about what had been successful in the past, and deeply reflecting on what would be needed for the future, came up with a list of their own. But first and foremost, recruiting. And this is the question about changing the culture at the universities. I can tell you very distinctly that many faculty, in fact, I would say it was probably one of the initial obstacles. For example, faculty in the STEM disciplines pointed out early on, well, why would someone bother going to the trouble to get into Berkeley if they're just going to be a teacher? Would be a typical sort of comment. Well, and they could look on some empirical data. Berkeley would have about, say, 5 math teachers, science teachers being produced a year. Not a big production, very similar to the University of Texas. However, fast forward a little, first year of implementation of this program, recruiting, trying to get the word out, we had 100 students sign up for the program on the Berkeley campus alone. So in some sense, that was very helpful because the students spoke with a very loud voice that the faculty has now heard. And we've had a resolution passed by our academic senate basically saying that they acknowledge that this is important and that the students are motivated and interested and they want to make a difference. So beyond that, I'm going to skip sort of forward. I'm going to focus on 2 examples and then I'll stop and we can go to questions. But running through these, coherent curriculum, this was the other thing. We had a hodgepodge. There were lots of things around, but the idea is that we didn't sit down, we didn't have the scientists and the educators sit and decide what would be a sequence of courses that built upon each other. That coherence is an important part because with a lack of cooperation or coordination, you ended up with something that you'd take an education class here, you'd take a math class there. It didn't necessarily fit together. And that's something we tried to address, and I think it's been quite successful. Field experiences. I'm going to unpack that a little later because, as Marianne emphasized, this has been a key point. And I think we're doing some kind of interesting things with respect to that. Research experiences like the STAR program and IMSI and others that get teachers out and have them actually doing lab research. Finally, the faculty participation's already been mentioned. Continuity components, these are everything from having study sessions, pizza parties, networking activities, keeping the students involved in between their courses. The master and mentor teachers, as has been mentioned, is absolutely critical. The data collection, research, and evaluation. Brian's comments earlier that this is essential. When we talk about research and data collection, I mean, think about it. I think most grocery stores keep better track of every head of lettuce than we do of the systems in our teachers in our teacher preparation programs. And I think that has to change. And we're making some efforts there that I'll share with you. One thing that is a little bit different than my experience at UTeach was that we have a very active collaboration with community colleges. I looked historically, half the math and science teachers leaving the UC system were community college transfers. They're very motivated, also much more diverse than the ones coming in directly as freshmen. And so we have been setting up partnerships with, and in California there happens to be 108 community colleges to set up partnerships with. So that's an ongoing project. I think we've got 32 set up so far. And then finally, financial incentives. About changing the culture of the program, it was unanimously agreed that this should be something that was rewarded and incentivized. And we're looking at putting together packages that would provide somewhat sort of graduated scholarships over the 4-year of the program, totaling about $5,000 per student if they complete all 4 years. Here's the growth. One of the things that's exciting about working with an entire system is, as you can see, even though term to term campuses go up and down, fall, spring, winter enrollments, whatnot, across our UC campuses, when you aggregate those all as a system, we've now, and I should mention, we're 2.5 years in. We're in our 3rd year. So we're still very new, but we've hit the 500 participant mark already as a system. And here's our anticipated growth. I was looking at Mary Ann's slides and looking at the example of 10 years of UTeach data. We're actually here now in our 3rd year, but this is definitely, we're on track. We have benchmarks set up. We've done some reverse engineering systems analysis of our own to kind of come up with a model. We'll have about 4,000 or so students per year in steady state. One other thing, our credential programs can't prepare all the teachers. They don't have the capacity yet. Historically, you see graduates who go on to get credentialed, about 1/3 of them do so at a UC. 1/3 go on to either a CSU, and another 1/3 go on to independent. We've built this into our model, and I actually would acknowledge that that's creating very nice dynamics. Teacher education and teacher preparation does not belong to any one entity or institution. It demands cooperation across the system. And that's something we're working explicitly here to try to attain the numbers that we need, such as 1,000 teachers per year. All right, so I'm going to end by kind of just drilling into an example, field experiences. Every program, teacher preparation, acknowledges something about that it's important to have field experiences. Before you become a teacher, you should actually go out into a classroom, right? So as an example, in UC, we wanted to think about this scientifically and unpack it a little. Also, I couldn't help but notice a couple years ago, Michael Martyr at UTeach got quoted in this article from Time magazine you might have seen. But essentially, giving students classroom experience in their first year was one of the crucial elements of the UTeach success. And the best way to convince talented people to stay is the opportunity to give them a try. That's a bold claim. It's saying, and Mary Ann iterated that, those field experiences are important. They also are logistically complicated and very expensive. So, scientifically, is it worth it? Or what about it is it worth it? How much? Which schools? There's a lot of questions. So, if you think it's a simple process, I'll just sort of share with you. This reminds me of the slide earlier, but maybe not so bad. I mean, we have schools, we have instructors, we have students and students. taking these seminars. By the way, we don't call them the STEP seminars. These seminars you take early on, they're called the California Teach or CAT seminars, but very similar in spirit. This field experience, we've created an online tool. This also addresses, I hope, the idea of using technology. But I just want to note that there's a lot of components. There's a university seminar occurring at the university. There's a professor teaching that seminar. There's a experience that happens in a K-12 school. There's a teacher at that school, and there's students that interconnect between these. So there's a lot of components to keep track of. Just going out into a classroom is not enough. This is what it actually looks like. My inspiration was, I noticed that, as I said, field experiences aren't new. Typically, students have a notebook. They go out and they take some notes. And then the instructor of this course or the supervisor, maybe once every 2 weeks, collects a pile of notebooks and then flips through, checks off, and has some sort of conversation. Technology was just crying to be brought into this situation. And so we're in the MySpace generation. I mean, these kids are fine. The students go on. When they go out into a school, they log on, and this is it. You actually see a window, drop-down menu, which school, what was the teacher's name, what was the grade, start time, end time, primary action. That's a good question. What are you doing out there? Of course, we ask them to describe it, but if you'll see in a second, it's impossible to do that. So we have a menu of options like, did they observe? Did they teach a lesson? Did they help small groups? Things like that. What was the topic? Was it a math, science, whatnot? And then there's sort of prompts, and we collect qualitative data as well. This part, about a minute for a student to do this. And then it gets scored online. The instructors of the course have access to see what the students are doing in their class. The students have a portfolio, a record of what they've accomplished. And to give you an idea, we've now documented over 25,000 field experiences in the last 2 years. We've had our UC students have worked with 771 mentors in 261 different schools, and the numbers grow rapidly. But, like I said, we have to treat the students better than lettuce. We really need to know what's going on. And we're getting the first insights into this, and we're collecting a lot of data. One of the interesting things about it is that the mentor teachers themselves started giving us information about things like, young students always enjoy having college students in the classroom. For some students, this is their first experience of seeing a college student. It may help them think about going into a university. The young people see students that are excited about learning, that are excited about mathematics. So now we've reconceptualized an aspect of this is not just that the potential teachers, these undergraduates, are having experiences in the schools, but every one of these 25,000 experiences is a student ambassador into real K-12 classrooms that are hitting thousands of students. And so I like to think the analogy I've been using lately as a way that we as a system can start better keeping track of this is we have carbon footprints, right? I mean, this is part of our sort of educational footprint. I mean, this is an impact that stretches out far beyond just having a single one-unit seminar. And in particular, the students, the teachers, the students in the K-12 students, they're all part of this. And we're doing our best to sort of document as we move forward. So this gives a little idea, I hope, of how we're using technology to take some of these essential components to get a better understanding them, and also get a better idea of how they're actually impacting the system immediately. These, of course, are often freshmen. They're not even teachers yet, but they're still out there, and we want to keep track of all of that. So, next steps. One of the first things is we can't, and we're not doing this all on grants. We're trying to institutionalize this, and I'll reiterate for this group, I can't agree more. A lot of the things such as instructional costs, the seminars, the coursework, fall within the regular university costs, and it can be institutionalized and done much like you would have a program in biology or mathematics or whatnot. However, there's things that fall outside of that. paying the mentor teachers in the classrooms to work with students. The field experiences part often there's not an easy mechanism in a public university for supporting those endeavors. And so we've had to reach out and look for business industry foundations to support that. And we're trying to build endowments. We are very proud to be recipients of, have two of our campuses get the NIMSY Awards, and we're looking forward to collaborating with them on that. And that will definitely help as well. And then now we just have to get the other campuses, right? So, and then finally, research, evaluate, improve. The UC faculty, when they were deciding whether this was something they wanted to get into, they made something very clear. They said, we don't want to just increase the head count and crank out a bunch of teachers. We want to produce excellent teachers. We're Research One universities, we're faculty. We want to be able to justify the quality of this program, and we want to do that scientifically. So that is definitely, we've heard, I agree, and we're working hard to continue that. So I'll end there. Thank you very much.
We are considerably behind time. We've actually slipped past our coffee hour. In the spirit of Mary Ann, we are one of the examples of where Starbucks has replicated itself. But let's take just take a very few questions, and then we'll take a very brief break, maybe squeeze that. Yes, the gentleman here. And if you could wait for the microphone, and then the gentleman behind him. And if you, again, could identify yourself and give your institutional affiliation.
Raymond McGee, SRI Internationals, Center for Education Policy. I just wanted to address the panel with a question about the role of informal learning. It was alluded to, I think, Mary Ann, you alluded to some of the experiences, field experiences that some of the teacher candidates get in that context. But I'd be interested in sort of the role of informal education in terms of encouraging, stimulating, catalyzing interest in math and science at all ages. And I'd be curious if you all could talk about the role of informal science, because I think in talking about teacher preparation, you've mostly focused on the formal side.
Let's take 2 or 3 questions before we...
Okay.
The gentleman just there, and then we'll take the gentleman in the back and the lady here, and then we'll let the panel go at them.
Rick Williams, American Indian College Fund, and this question is for Patrick or Mary Ann, and I'm interested in learning about what's going on with the outcome. You're doing it sounds like you're doing a really good job producing teachers. What's happening in the classrooms with the students? I know 5 years is not a long time, but are you seeing increases in the students' success?
And there was a gentleman in the back, Jacqueline, and a lady up front here.
Good morning. My name is Al Soyster. I'm with the National Science Foundation, and I have a question for Mary Ann. I appreciate that presentation very much. I was taken by, on one of your slides, of the 500 students, there were 13 in engineering of the 500. My own background is the Dean of Engineering before I came to NSF, and my concern is one does that indicate that the issue that is the 800-pound gorilla in this whole operation is the ultimate financial rewards that people in the STEM teaching are going to get? I've been married to a teacher for 40 years, a public school teacher in 5 different states. She's not a STEM teacher. But in every place we've ever been, the rewards for teaching were specified by certain contracts that never differentiated how much my wife got versus the physics teacher. Now, I was happy with that in our own case, but in the bigger picture, unless we get to a point where STEM teachers are going to be paid twice as much as they are now, will we not always be having a difficulty in looking at the overall system? Because most of what we're talking about here are supply side kind of interventions. The demand side, to me, my experience is the dominating factor that we're up against.
Then there's a lady up front here, and then we'll ask the panel to comment.
I'm Susan Lavrakis. I work for BAE Systems, and I'm here in my capacity as chair of the Workforce Committee for the Aerospace Industries Association. You made reference to the America Competes Act and the need for funding that, and we certainly support that and are working to advocate for it. My question is, will your organizations, your programs directly benefit from any of the funds in that program? Will you apply for them? How will it affect NIMSY, UTeach, and CalTeach?
Thank you. Panelists,
Well, I could, the last question, yes, I think they will. I think also places that are not getting NIMSY support right now could apply. As I understand it, the way the legislation is written, it will be administered by, it's the part that would fund a UTeach-like program is under direction by NSF under the NOIS area. And there's a lot of specification about what the program should look like, but I think both replication sites and non-replication sites probably could apply. But we have people here from NSF who might be able to give you a better answer to that. But yes, I think so. I have been talking to representatives, Congress people about supporting this act for that very reason. On the idea of the informal learning question, I think it's very important to recruiting students into science, and it's also a very rewarding thing for the UTeach students to do. A lot of the people who we support with internships, they learn more that way about teaching than they do in our formal field experience. And so, yeah, I think these are things we really need to support. Museums, after-school programs, whatever. Compensation is a huge deal. We're starting to see a little bit of movement on this, but frankly, I think these strong students are being attracted, and it's not just through formal programs like ours, but in informal programs, alternative certification programs too. Really strong people are being attracted to teaching because they want to make a difference, and they're doing it in spite of the poor compensation. I'm too tired this morning. But I think, at some point when a person has kids old enough to go to college and so on, this starts to be a personal issue that does matter more, and the sort of missionary zeal might take a back seat. So we've got to address this compensation issue as a population, I think. I got the other question.
Well, I'll take these in a couple different orders, but one comment about engineering is that, for example, at Berkeley, the Associate Dean of Engineering, George Johnson.
He's the PI.
He's the PI of the NIMSY grant, and he teaches the Cat 1 course. He's very involved. In fact, we have a lot of engineers in our system working and trying to figure out other ways of going on there. But of course, your point wasn't about engineers being involved; it was about the compensation. And there, I'll add another sort of spin to this, and that is that it's interesting when we survey students why they're going into these programs. A lot of the faculty tended to have a sort of idea that students want to become teachers because they were inspired by a teacher in their own life and they want to do something like that. But we're finding much more common is that the students are not going into the program because of that. They're actually going in for somewhat the opposite. They're saying, I was always good at math or science, but I looked around me at my friends suffering through horrible math and science class year after year after year. And I want to change that. I think I can make a difference. And that's the underlying motivation. So I agree. Compensation is a huge factor. But the students we're seeing at Berkeley, UCLA, San Diego, Santa Cruz, they're going in because they want to problem solve and they want to make an impact on society. So informal education was another question. We're very fortunate. We work very closely with, for example, the Lawrence Hall of Science. the Exploratorium in San Francisco, Scripps Aquarium at UCSD. So we have a lot of sort of built-in affiliations with informal science centers. And as Mary Ann pointed out, our students in the program often have internships in those. So I definitely feel that informal science education is important, and we're trying to make it more systematic and make it more available. The last question was about outcomes, and I can say, because we get asked this all the time, we haven't, we're in our third year. We haven't even produced any teachers yet, so we're not in a position to stay. But we're trying to collect the information and set up the data systems to enable us to look very closely. It's a very complex issue, trying to ascertain and measure teacher quality and teacher impact. And if anything, I can say that we're very open to partnering and collaborating, as I think everyone tries to take on the best way to do this and not reduce it to some simplistic test score or something like that, but look at a wider range of measures. So that's where we're at.
We actually have an assessment system in Texas that will allow us to look at that. The analysis hasn't been done yet, but there is an entity, the National Center for Educational Accountability, that Tom Luce started before he started NIMSY, that is supposedly analyzing the Texas data with respect to different types of preparation that the teacher has undergone. But as Patrick said, it's really dirty data. I mean, it's very hard to really pull apart the different elements of what's influencing a student's performance when they've had 1 year of a U-Teach teacher or something like that. So I'm not sure if it's going to be terribly revealing, but I can say that our U-Teach students usually get jobs before they graduate. They're just snapped up by the school districts in which they practice teach. They are very frequently promoted quickly in the second or third year to leaders in their school. They're clearly recognized by the districts and by their schools and principals as very good teachers. So.
Any last comments from the panel? We are half an hour past the end of our coffee break. This is just really a testimony to how